Hello, my crafty friends. Well, today we are going to focus on some Christmas cards created with some non-traditional Christmas colors. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have 6 different Christmas cards to share, featuring a new bundle from the Stampin' Up! Holiday catalog. Now, this bundle of products is called Snowflake Wishes, and it includes a stamp set and some fun new snowflake dies. Now, besides using the Snowflake Wishes bundle, we are also going to be using the Snowflake Splendor Designer Series paper. Now, this particular paper has quite a few different non-traditional Christmas colors. So when I say non-traditional, I'm speaking about no red and no green colors. Now, of course, you can use these card designs with the regular traditional colors, the red and green, but you will see as we move through this video how beautiful these cards are in the non-traditional colors. So let's get started. Okay, so the non-traditional colors that I will be using to create these cards are actually featured in the Snowflake Splendor Designer Series paper. So I have a couple of sheets of the paper here. And what you will notice is that there is some Pacific Point, so kind of this darker blue. There's Highland Heather. There's some lighter blue in here, which is the Balmy Blue, and then there's some Coastal Cabana. So those are the non-traditional colors I will be using to create these cards. But actually, I'm only going to be using one particular ink color, and that's to stamp the sentiments. So I'll be using Gorgeous Grape to stamp all of my sentiments. Okay, so this first card just features a quick and simple little card design. We are going to cut 3 different pieces of pattern paper, so I'm using that Snowflake Splendor pattern paper, but this design will work with any pattern paper, so just kind of keep that in mind as I share these with you today. So let's get started with this first card. So you're going to start out with a piece of Whisper White cardstock for the base of your card. And then you're going to cut a 2 by 5 1/4 inch piece of pattern paper. So this is going to be the main focal point here on the card. It's going to go right down the center. And then you're going to cut 2 additional pieces of a different pattern from the paper pack. So I chose this particular watercolored pattern, and these papers are cut at 1 by 5 1/4 inches. So they're basically just going to go on each side of this larger one. So I like to lay my papers out on my card front first before I start to adhere them. So we're going to start on the left side first. And I'm just leaving about 1/4 inch matting. Now that we have our first piece in place, we can go ahead and adhere the other pieces, and you're just going to adhere them right next to each other on the card front. Next, you're just going to cut a 3/4 by 4 inch piece of white cardstock and just stamp your greeting on it. You may have to adjust the size of your cardstock depending on what stamp set you are using, but 3/4 by 4 inches works great for my card, for my sentiment. And then we're just going to go ahead and embellish the card. So I've cut a few snowflakes out using the particular bundle. Snowflakes make great embellishments. So I'm just going to kind of tuck those around my sentiment. And then I'm just going to embellish my snowflakes with a few blue faceted gems. And that's it. Pretty quick and simple, and it's just so pretty. Okay, this second card has a kind of a fun and unique card design, but it's really simple to put together. So let me show you how to create this card. So you're going to start with a 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of white cardstock, and then you're going to cut a 1 1/4 by about 5 1/2 inches. And so I made it just a little bit longer so that it hangs over on each side of the cardstock. So this is the 4 inch side. So if you make it 5 1/2, it'll be hanging over just enough. Then you're going to cut 2 more pieces of pattern paper. So I just chose a different pattern from the pack, and these pieces are 3/4 inch by about 5 1/2 inches. So these are going to go on each side of that middle piece. So I'm going to adhere everything in this direction, and we're going to adhere it on an angle. And then once we get it adhered, then we'll turn it in this direction to create the card, but it's a lot easier to glue everything together in this direction. Okay, so we'll start at the top here and we'll adhere this first piece, and you want to just adhere it across here on a slight angle. And I'm using liquid glue so I can kind of move it around a little bit. Then go ahead and adhere the middle piece, and you want to leave just a little bit of space in between the two, kind of gives it a nice look. And then the last piece. Okay, so once you have all of the pieces adhered, then just flip it over, and you're just going to be following along the side of the cardstock, and you're just going to trim off these excess pieces. So trimming off these excess pieces makes it just so much easier to create this fun look without having to try and measure each piece exactly. Okay, so now that we have our design created, we can go ahead and adhere this to our card base. So I'm just using a piece of Highland Heather cardstock. Now this time you'll want to cut a piece of white cardstock that's still 3/4 inches wide, or whatever width you need for your particular sentiment, but you want it 5 1/4 inches long so that it runs the full length of this white piece of cardstock. And then I just cut out 2 snowflakes, one from Highland Heather cardstock and one from white. And I'm just going to layer them together. And then I'm just going to go ahead and adhere them to the card front. And then for the finishing touch, I just embellished it with another faceted gem. Okay, the third card design I have to share with you is another simple card design. So this time we're going to cut out 2 different pieces of pattern paper and layer them together to create the backdrop for our card. So let me show you how to make this one. So you're going to start with a piece of white cardstock for the base of your card. Then you're going to cut a 2 by 5.5 inch piece of pattern paper, and you're just going to adhere it to kind of like the left side of your card front. So you basically want your pattern paper to go the full length of the card front. Then you're going to choose a second piece of pattern paper and cut this one at 2 1/4 by 3 inches. And this one's going to go right in the center, and it's just going to overlap onto that other piece. Then you're going to cut a 3/4 by 3 1/4 inch piece of white cardstock. And again, this fits my sentiment perfectly, so you might have to adjust yours. But this one's just going to go right across the center. And again, we're going to embellish the card with some little snowflakes that I cut out using the die from this particular set. And then for the finishing touch, we are going to add some more of these fun faceted gems to embellish our card. Okay, so there you go. Another quick and simple, yet absolutely beautiful card. Okay, the fourth card that I have to share with you features a fun kind of label die cut right in the center of the card. So that's really the focal point for the card. So let me show you how to make this one. So you're going to start with a 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of white cardstock, and you're going to use this die to cut out the center of the white cardstock. So it gives you this nice little snowflake frame that you can use to create the focal point for your card. So next you're going to cut a piece of pattern paper, and so it needs to be just a little bit wider than this particular die cut. So mine's about 3 inches wide and about 5 inches long. And so we're going to adhere that on the back of this die cut. So I'm going to adhere it right over that negative space. Okay, so once you have that piece adhered to the back of your white cardstock, then you can go ahead and adhere it to your card front. So I'm just using a piece of Highland Heather cardstock for the base of my card. So now we can go ahead and decorate it. So I cut a 3 1/4 by 4 inch piece of white cardstock, and again stamped my greeting right across the center. Then I created a little snowflake shape from a piece of Highland Heather cardstock. So this time I'm going to put this up on the top. So notice how on this one it creates like 2 snowflakes here on the bottom and 1 snowflake here. So I just flipped it around. So one card has the double snowflake on the top, the other one has the double snowflake on the bottom. So you can create it either way. And then for the finishing touch, we're just gonna add our little gems to the card. So there you go, another quick and simple card idea. Okay, so this 5th card is another fun and simple idea, and so this time I added a little bit of embossing to the background, so let me show you how to make this one. Okay, so this time we're going to cut a 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of white cardstock, and I just embossed it with the Winter Snow embossing folder. So this is a new embossing folder that came out in the Stampin' Up! Holiday Catalog. So once it's embossed, we can just go ahead and adhere it to our card front. So I'm using Highland Heather as my card base. Then you're going to cut a 2 by 5 1/4 inch piece of pattern paper, and we're just going to adhere that right down the center of the card. And again, I created the same type of sentiment. So this is 3/4 by 4 inches, and we're just going to adhere that right across the center of the card. And then I cut a kind of a medium-sized snowflake, and I'll embellish the top part of the card with that. And then for the finishing touch, I just added a little blue faceted gem. So that's it. That's pretty quick and simple, right? All right, and this last card idea is probably the most complicated of them all. But just so you know, it's really not that hard. So let me show you how to make it. Okay, so for this card, we're gonna start with a piece of white cardstock for the base of our card. Next, you're going to cut a 2 by 5 1/2 inch piece of pattern paper, and we're going to adhere that right to the bottom of the card. So I'm just turning my card so I can adhere it. Next, you want to cut a 3 by 5 1/2 inch piece of white cardstock. So we're going to do some paper tearing. So you're just going to grab the end of the cardstock and you're just going to slowly tear and just kind of move it back and forth as you tear along the bottom. Okay, once you have created that tear line across the bottom, then you're just going to go ahead and adhere this right to the top of the card front, and it's going to overlap slightly onto the designer paper. Then you're going to cut a 1 3/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of a different pattern, and you're going to adhere this to the top part of your card front. So it's a lot of layers on this card, but it's definitely worth it once you get done. Then you're going to cut a 3/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of white cardstock and stamp your little greeting on it. And this piece is going to cover up this seam right here where this pattern paper kind of meets up with the torn paper. So I'm just going to put that right across here. And then we're going to embellish it with a couple snowflakes. So I have a little small snowflake that I cut from Highland Heather cardstock. And then my little medium one here is cut from white cardstock. And then we're just going to go ahead and adhere that up in the corner here. And then for the finishing touch, we're just going to embellish the center of that snowflake with a little faceted gem. All right, so that is card number 6. Okay, so how fun was that? Now you have 6 different card ideas that you can use to create cards for Christmas or really cards for any occasion. These layouts will work with any pattern papers that you have on hand and any kind of fun embellishments, so just get creative with it. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.